This is Current Reflections, a production of Tribal College, Journal of American Indian Higher Education.
For this installment of Current Reflections, we are joined by longtime Chief Dull Knife College President, Dr. Richard Littlebear. I'm Bradley Shreve. Born in Lame Deer, Montana, on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, Richard Littlebear served in the U.S. Army from 1965 to 1967 and was honorably discharged, going on to earn a master's degree in educational administration from Montana State University, and later his Doctor of Education degree from Boston University. For many years thereafter, Dr. Littlebear served as both president and dean of cultural affairs at Chief Dull Knife College. He is also the author of numerous articles and essays on language revitalization, including the highly influential "To Preserve Our Languages, We Must Change Our Teaching Methods," and the foreword for Tribal College Press's recent book, Language Revitalization at Tribal Colleges and Universities. The Cheyenne language is Dr. Littlebear's first language, which he also learned to read and write. So thanks for joining us, Dr. Littlebear. We're honored to have you here to discuss our current theme, sacred places.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, let's begin with a very basic but complex question. What makes a place sacred?
Well, you're right. This is a very complex question. What makes a sacred place does not seem to have any set criteria when looking at places that are declared sacred. Generally, something had to happen that made the place sacred, like the bringing down from Mount Sinai of 10 Commandments, or the laws given by our cultural hero, Sweet Medicine, at Noah, now known as Bear Butte in South Dakota, or even the burial sites of Jesus and Mohammed, or seeing a vision as 3 little girls did of Mary. Yeah, the criteria is changeable, varied. Personally, I have always been a praying person and have prayed both privately and publicly without a priest or a pastor or preacher, or without even a Cheyenne medicine man or a woman. And that probably doesn't cover a lot of other areas like the Shinto, Japan, the Buddhists, which have similar miraculous events that later turned sacred. So that's pretty hard to answer that, but that's my take on it.
Okay, thanks. In your view, how do sacred sites in Native America differ from those in the Western world?
Again, in my view, everything is sacred. In the Western world, it's like whatever is considered sacred has been deemed so by dogma, religious dogma, and convenience. For instance, who decided that only humans have souls and thus access to a place called heaven? Who decided that 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 cute little pet dog of yours is going to be relegated to the fires and agonies of hell without any recourse to choose a doggy heaven. Well, humans did all that. That's where the dogma, and that's where non-humans don't fit into the dogma of religion. So that's my take on it, because we as Native Americans, and particularly Cheyennes, regard even the stones as having a being in and of themselves. So it's pretty widespread. And as somebody who grew up that way, I've stuck with that. I come from a family that was partially Mennonite, and I graduated from a Mennonite college in Bethel, Kansas. I've got a very good education there, but I slowly started moving away from the Mennonite church because of some of the dogmatic things that I realized back then. Like I started asking questions at the various meetings that we had every week. And one of the questions I asked was, my tribe really did not become associated with Christians or Christianity until the 1800s, maybe the mid 1800s. And I said, I asked, what was going on before that with my people? Up until the 1800s, they didn't have any access to heaven, or not any knowledge about heaven. And I said, what happened to all my ancestors who died before this, regardless of the reason? Did they all go to hell because they did not know the scriptures, the Ten Commandments, the teachings of Jesus Christ? I said, and nobody had an answer for it. Well, they did sort of have an answer for it. One of them was, well, as long as they lived a Christ-like life, they would be eligible to go to heaven. And I said, who determines that Christ-like nature? Of course, there was no answer to that, because it's humans who determined that. So I started, that was one of the reasons I started slowly pulling away, because if countless centuries of my own people do not have access to heaven before 1800s, I might as well join the thousands or hundreds of Cheyennes who have died and are probably in hell. That was my reasoning, and probably very surfacey, but that was how I dealt with that. So besides, I was having trouble with my classes, and I spent a lot of time going to religious meetings, and I decided I better just forget this and concentrate on my very worldly concerns, which were my studies. Anyhow, that's a long answer to what you just asked. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. So, we live in a society that really prioritizes economic growth and resource extraction. Given that reality, what are the best strategies for safeguarding sacred places?
I don't. Yeah, unfortunately, this society also highly prizes accumulating and hoarding of personal wealth, and that's often gained by resource extraction. And eventually, the resources are going to run out. Eventually, at least those that are accessible. And that's going to lead to a lot of catastrophes in the world, in a planet that's increasingly desires food. There are now 8 billion of us on this planet, and many of them don't have access to either clean water or to an adequate food source. So I think that any safeguarding of sacred places is going to be falling by the wayside, as it already has in the past here in the United States. So I don't know. Maybe setting aside sacred places and setting up safeguards that protect geographical areas that are sacred or deemed sacred, setting them aside for safekeeping in perpetuity. Now, I know that has been done with our National Park Service and other legislation. But once we start getting short on oil, those kind of safeguards aren't going to hold too much weight. And I think we have another way of doing this is to educate the present and coming generations about the fragility of this planet. And we have no other readily accessible planets to flee to. And we would probably eventually do the same thing there as we are doing here on this planet. So I don't have a very good view about this. The Cheyenne people are right in the middle of it. Our reservation is completely underlain by high quality coal. And ever since we got the reservation back in the late 1800s, we have been safeguarding it. There's coal mining that's going on all around us, and we are the only piece of land, 445 square acres, that are not being mined. So eventually, when we revert back to a coal-based economy, we're going to be good targets for development. Again, the land will be at a premium for the extractive companies that do that sort of thing. So I don't have too much too many alternatives for safeguarding our sacred places. They've been destroyed, or they have been sort of nationalized, like the national parks. And while that's really a good deal, they are also under the same threats that all reservations are, not only the Cheyenne Reservation. So again, I don't have a very good solution for this, but I know something's going to have to happen. Maybe we're going to have to rely on wind and solar energy. There seems to be an abundance of that. So
Yeah, let's hope that we go in that direction rather than reverting to coal. It seems
yeah,
like a recipe for disaster. So, you served as president of Chief Dull Knife College for many years. In your experience, what role can tribal colleges play in the protection of sacred places?
I have contemplated that. I think tribal colleges are really a positive add, addition to our lives as Native Americans. But I think it was Einstein who said, and I'm going to be paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact words he said, that any future war, the Third World War, he said, would be fought with the highest technological weapons, sophisticated hydrogen bombs and atomic bombs. And he said that this would all happen during the Third World War. And whenever it came around, the Fourth World War would be fought with Stone Age cubs, because we would have destroyed all the other sophisticated weaponry. When I was thinking of these things, at that time I was researching an article about how long oil would last as an extractive resource. Most of the sources that I looked at said that the world was over the hump, meaning that we had extracted enough oil so that we were now extracting oil that was rapidly depleting. And I began thinking that tribal colleges should revive our cultures and our ancient sacred ceremonial ways, our languages, and live in harmony with each other, no matter the tribe. And we should learn to live without alcoholic drinks, opioids, drugs, and try to live as we were 600 years ago with the help of tribal colleges. Our tribal curricula should be geared to those subjects that are both contemporary and ancient. We can't, I think, discard any one, what's going on contemporarily. And we can certainly revive what happened, what the tools and the practices we used in the ancient world in the time before 600 years ago, And it would be difficult to do what I envisioned. Remember, I was just thinking about this because I was writing a paper And we would be teaching our youngsters, college age on down, and maybe even a little bit older, that we could live off the land and not be subjected to so many of the things that have destroyed and are destroying our cultures and our languages and are depleting our land. So I think tribal colleges could then be the people that other societies, other cultures looked at, say, see, they're making it, and they're using old time ways of doing it. Again, these are probably pipe dreams on my part, but I think that tribal colleges could have a real impact if they could demonstrate that languages can be revived, that cultures can be revived, and still be applicable to the present day. So that's a lot of wishful thinking, I know, but I think we could, as tribal colleges, we could be able to do that.
Richard Littlebear served as president of Chief Dull Knife College for over 20 years. We'll continue our conversation on sacred places in just a moment.
Yate, this is Marvin Tom, the advertising coordinator for the Tribal College Journal. Since 1989, TCJ has earned a loyal following of readers who are passionate about American Indian education. Our dynamic media outlet reaches a diverse, wide-ranging market, including students, educators, and lawmakers. And here's the best part, TCJ offers a variety of reasonable price advertising options that can be placed in our magazine, on our website, or right here in our Current Reflection podcast. For more information, contact me at 970-764-4238 or at marvin@tribalcollegejournal.org. Yeah.
This is Current Reflections, and I'm speaking with Richard Littlebear about sacred places. In the latest issue of Tribal College Journal, Fred Chapman contributed a feature article entitled Squaring the Circle, which focuses on the Northern Cheyenne Eco-Regional Ethnographic Assessment Project. You were president when this collaboration began. Can you tell us a little bit about the project?
Yeah, I kind of tumbled into this assessment project. There was a group of people looking for a place to meet, and they came to my office. I was still president at that time. They came to my office and asked if they could have one of the rooms for about an hour or two on a project that they were starting. And I said, yeah, right next door, you can have the boardroom. And there's nothing scheduled for the rest of the day. So you don't have to hurry or rush or do anything. And I showed them, I asked them if they needed more, we needed more chairs, just trying to be a good host. They were talking, many of them talked Cheyenne, so we talked. And I sat down and with them just to see what was going on, because this was a cultural commission sponsored study, and was related to the tribal council. So I sat down. I was really intrigued by that because they were doing an assessment of all the flora and fauna that still existed in certain areas of northern Wyoming and southeastern Montana where we live, and where we used to do our hunting and living and even growing crops. And one of the subjects that they were talking about was what kind of flora and fauna that was used in sacred medicines and sacred ceremonies was still in existence, given all the agricultural development of the country around us and the mining and so forth. And I thought, this is really interesting. It had a little trouble getting started, but once it got started, there were explorations to northern Wyoming, areas of northern Wyoming, some of which was privately owned, but the owners were good enough to let us explore the areas. I never went out on any of those missions, but I would always sit in on the reports and so forth. And one of the things that I kept thinking of, this is going to be a good template or a good prototype for other tribes who want to renew their resources for the flora and fauna that we used to use in our sacred ceremonies, and which have been depleted again through agricultural usage and the mining. So I didn't last all the way through. I resigned or retired before the project was over with. But Fred Chapman was really a good person to lead the project. And he managed to get it through. We had some difficulties with the funding from the Bureau of Land Management. But it went through. There were people who cared enough about what we were doing that they managed to procure some more money at each stage. So again, as I said, I was out of the picture by the time Fred Chapman and his group finished it, and I haven't read the final product, but I hope to get one from Fred. So I really thought that was a good program, and I was really glad that privately owned land was opened to our people, checking on what was still available in the land that hadn't been plowed up or anything like that. So I think other tribes can benefit from it without having to go through all the stuff that we went through, like procuring money, procuring people to make the trips out to the privately owned land, just things like that. But I think it was successfully concluded.
Yeah.
But
Well, we'll definitely send you a copy of the issue with Fred's article, and in
yeah,
fact, you should be getting, as a emeritus member of our advisory board, you should be getting copies of Tribal College Journal every issue. So I'll make sure that you're on our mailing list.
okay, I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. So Chapman points out that the relationship between tribes and federal land agencies like the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service that this relationship has changed significantly in the past 20 years. Does this give you hope for the future preservation of indigenous sacred sites?
No, no, it does not. Because the BLM and the United States Forest Service are in the same, we're in the same department. That's now being headed by Deb Holland. So it's always been a competitive situation. The Bureau of Land Management and the U.S. Forest Service, I mean, I think they're good organizations. Don't get me wrong, but I think that sometimes they're kind of overbearing in what they want to preserve or what they want to let go. And by that I mean, how much access are we going to give the common citizen to these places? And it's not, it doesn't from that standpoint, it doesn't seem like a very healthy way of preserving land, because people like being out in the forests and the land management too. So we are going back to this the extractive resources dilemma. The United States government has always been hungry for that. Coal and uranium, and before that, gold, and they just trampled over the rights of Native Americans to get at it, trampled over their lives, and that's why it doesn't make me feel good about it, because the extractive resources, they've always been sought after. The United States government has always been hungry for them. And I think that hunger will not go away. So we Native Americans are caught in a very terrible dilemma, especially when we aspire to live like white people, like the white majority. We still want to protect the little land that we have left. The Northern Cheyennes have a reservation that's 445 miles square, about 22 by 44. So we have a really a small piece of land here, over compared to what we used to travel over, hunt, live, grow crops up until the middle of the 1800s. So I don't have too much hope for saving our sacred sites. When we were, as an example, when we were, well, let me start over. In the dilemma that I talked about, we had people coming on a reservation looking for coal and oil, and I would go to those meetings. I worked for the Busby School District at that time, and I would go to those meetings, and I was single, and I had a pickup, so it gave me access to wherever the meetings were going on with the companies that were seeking to extract some of our minerals. And I would come away thinking, man, this is going to be good. We'll have regular jobs. We'll have access to electricity, good water, and so forth. And that would be at one meeting. Then I go to another meeting that said who advocated not developing our resources. And I would say, "Oh, that's good. There will be land around here for our children, our grandchildren, and land for us that are still alive here." And I would come back out and say, I don't need those. I don't need all these mineral stuff here. And I would get into my gas burning pickup and go home. I thought, what a contradiction. What a contradiction. And most of us are in that kind of a situation. So I don't think there's the possibility of us hanging on like this to our land intact, what land we have left intact. That's probably not going to last too long, because even our youngsters want flat screen TVs, they want good automobiles, they want good jobs. And from inside, that's gonna destroy any incentive we have for living like the old ways, talking our language and so forth. So yeah, I look at it as a very, very difficult, another one of the very difficult dilemmas that we have to weather in the generations to come. Me, personally, I have never taken a job just to earn more money. For instance, at the college, I held 2 jobs. The presidency, of course, and I was the acting cultural affairs director for 12 years or so. And I did the latter job without any additional pay or any other compensation. And I did that because I felt that learning our language, perpetuating our cultural practices, was going to help save the younger people from all the opioids, all the drugs, all the other dangers that accompany that. And hopefully sometime in the future that does happen. But right now we are all in a dilemma of trying to survive. So that's my take on this. So it doesn't give me much hope for preserving indigenous sacred rights, like the Bears Ears National Park down in I think it's in southern Utah. That was just taken away during the Trump administration without any consultation of Native Americans who regarded that as a very sacred site. And thankfully, it has been restored. And thankful to the people, the non-Cheyenne, non-Indian people who really advocated for it in Congress and in the state legislatures. So, but it will return. It will return, because these sites contain a lot of minerals that some people say need extraction. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I think we need Secretary Holland to serve as Secretary of the Interior for life. It might that would give me a little bit of hope.
Yeah, me too.
As an experienced and longtime TCU leader, what advice can you offer the next generation of tribal college leaders concerning the protection of sacred sites and their place in the TCU curriculum?
Well, I think I've already kind of answered that, because when I was talking about writing a research paper that dealt with the depletion of oil, and I think I'm rapidly losing I think what the tribes need to do, and that I know this is nearly impossible because of how we are now situated, but I think the next generation of tribal college leaders should include in their curricula what solace, what value, why we place the value we do in these secret sites, and make that an essential part of all the curriculum in a school that deals with this kind of situation where land needs to be saved. And I think that I think the tribes should try to get together as tribes and as individuals, because we have too much strife on our reservations. And one way of eliminating that is to try to eliminate the bad influences of drugs and alcohol and any other chemical that comes in and provides a high for our people, a negative high for our people. And I think we have to deal with those. And one of the best ways to do that is to revert to our cultures. I'm not particularly a sacred oriented person, much as I was not much of a Christian oriented person. But I think that there's hope for us in that. Because I said I'm a praying man. I don't make a big deal of it. My wife and I go down to Sacred Heart. Noah was Bear Butte in South Dakota. Just eat there, offer tobacco, offer cloths, and then we come back renewed in our own way. And I think if more people did that, it would really help, because it gives us the reason why Sacred Heart. I mean, gosh, it keeps saying Sacred Heart. I hope you delete that. I think our spiritualism, our devotion to our cultures should be foremost. And it's going to take time for that to come about, because the negative influences on our reservation are very, very powerful. but we're going to have to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have as far as questions. So I just want to thank you for joining us in this installment of Current Reflections on Sacred Places. And I hope you next time you're down here in Albuquerque that you give me a call and we'll meet up again for some coffee.
Yeah, that was enjoyable.
Yeah.
I will be down there again in I think it's in August, next month. I'm the president of the Indigenous Languages Institute, and that's why I'm always down there. It's not. I mean, I like New Mexico. I went to the University of New Mexico, and I really like that. I really like the place. It's changed too, just as the reservation has. When I was down there, I could bicycle all over town. I wouldn't dare do that now because of traffic and other 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 dangers. So yeah, we certainly will.
Okay. Well, great. So we'll hopefully talk to you soon and you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks
Okay.
for setting this up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening to this installment of Current Reflections. Richard Littlebear is not only a longtime TCU leader, but also an author and academic. You can access his article, The Spiritual Journey of Chief Dull Knife College, at tribalcollegejournal.org.
Current Reflections is a production of Tribal College, Journal of American Indian Higher Education. Thank you for listening.